I played a ton of platformers, but never one where you play as a meat grinder. Well, that was before I just got done playing Shanky, the Vegan's Nightmare. But is this one the next tasty, meaty platformer for you to sink your teeth into, or should it just be grinded up into dust? Shanky, the Vegan's Nightmare is a budget platformer with an interesting premise of playing as a meat grinder. It's just something that I hadn't done before, but outside of that idea, things start to fall apart immediately. The game has you playing as the meat grinder. He's unable to jump, so you actually use meat to propel yourselves upwards. This works as a platform and shield and the like, but honestly, this whole mechanic is never smooth, and a lot of times the animations and the character hitting it just goes all over the place. At its core, it's the most basic of platformers. Your goal is to get through the levels. There's an occasional boss encounter here and there, and a few times where gameplay changes up to at least keep things somewhat interesting through the relatively short experience. During the main levels, your only way of getting around is just moving and using the meat that you're able to build up into big hills to get up to higher platforms, get over gaps, and deal with enemies. Most enemies in the game can be turned into meat that you can then use to just grind up more and make more platforms with. There's a meat counter in the upper left corner, a weird health bar that you end up replenishing picking up meat cleavers and knives throughout the game, and that's really all there is. During boss encounters, all of a sudden you get the ability to fire out a projectile. They don't really tell you have this ability, and after trying all the buttons during the earlier levels, when I got to the first boss, it took me a bit to realize, oh, now I can use the trigger button to fire out the projectile. Because the hit detection and the overall platforming is just so bad, a lot of these bosses are just a chore to play through. They're not necessarily very difficult. You're constantly getting replenishments of your health during the course of the fight, but a lot of times it can take a while to actually land hits. You have to float up into the air and just launch your projectile and hope that it ends up hitting the enemy where you need to. So because of the length of the fight, and at any point if you die, you have to start the fight over from the very beginning, that's where the difficulty in the game really is. It's just, there's no checkpoints or anything, so you're doing the whole levels or boss fights over if you end up dying. If the gameplay had been more refined, if the idea of using the meat to propel yourself forward was done a bit better, maybe using it as a jetpack or something like that, maybe something like Mario Sunshine where you're using it to hover and the like, it could have been a lot better, but unfortunately here it's just so inconsistent, it just takes away from whatever coolness there potentially could have been in this very, very low budget game. From the technical side at least though, there was no crashing or other major glitches. Shanky the Vegan's Nightmare is available for $6.99 on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. It does not have a Platinum on the PS4. Overall, just chop up Shanky and throw it into the pile of other mediocre, low-budget platformers that I played over the last couple of years on the PS4 and Switch. These types of games are everywhere on the system, so even though it is a low-budget game, the brokenness sometimes of the platforming just makes it really hard for me to recommend it to really anyone. With that said though, I'm going to be giving Shanky the Vegan's Nightmare a 3 out of 10. That's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.